Welcome, everyone. My name is Kirill, and I'm happy to see you here back on our YouTube channel. So today's session is somewhat different, and today we're going to talk about not so much how to develop the products in Creatio, but how to become a Creatio certified developer. So when you're considering your career or your path in Creatio Developer, you're probably wondering, first of all, why you may want to be a Creatio certified developer. And the answer is quite simple. When you work for an organization who is a partner of Creatio, you are, or your organization is kind of required to have certified developers. Now, this is required because you as a partner might be getting some jobs from Creatio, meaning that you're probably doing some projects, and most importantly, not so much for referral, but most importantly for technical support. So when you're going to our tech support and you're asking a question or you're raising a ticket, the expectation is that the person who is asking the question is the certified developer or perhaps a certified analyst. The reason it's done is so that the support is not bombarded with various questions that could be addressed through simple training. So when you're asking support, we are expecting that you are a certified developer. This is the primary reason that you may want to be one. Now, in terms of the path that you need to take as a certified developer, so let's cover that now. We're expecting that a certified developer is someone who's familiar with the major architecture of Creatio. So we expect you to understand the fundamental blocks of Creatio, so how Creatio is built, what is the package architecture, how you can use or consume some built-in tools, how you can consume development tools, how you can develop in local environment, how you can create a local environment. There is actually quite a lot of things that we, as the Creatio, expect you to know when you want to become a certified developer. So essentially, when you're certified, we are asserting that you are an expert in some areas. And the areas that we're asserting is that you know how to consume some of the tools that we have developed for you. So for example, you are expected to know what a Creatio SDK is, and we're also expecting you to be familiar with the Creatio test framework, and we're expecting you to know the architecture of Creatio so you have a fundamental understanding of how you should be building your application in order to make it responsive, in order to make it work well without jeopardizing the security of the application. We're also expecting you to take advantage of certain features that are built into Creatio. So for example, there's a lot of work and effort that was put into BPM tools, BPM and DCM tools. And it's true that you can solve pretty much any problem without using BPM or DCM tools whatsoever, and you can code everything. You can code it in the front end or you can code it in the back end. But we want to prevent the practice of coding for the sake of coding. A lot of people who are not familiar with Creatio, unfortunately, or with the basic features, especially if they're good developers, they're going to go ahead and they're going to implement their own implementation of whatever the feature they're looking to implement all in code. And that's all great, but that's rarely extensible and it's rarely as well built as the one that we're providing you with the help of BPM tools. So we're expecting you to know a thing or two about BPM tools. You're not expected to be an expert, but we want you to have a broad understanding of what the tools are offered or what the tools are built into the system so you can take advantage of them and program against them rather than without them. So let's take a look at the product skills that you're expected to have. So the first thing is obviously we're expecting you to know about development tools. So things like the SDKs that we're offering as part of NuGet package, the test framework that we're offering as part of a NuGet package. We're expecting you to know how to create various packages and assemblies. We're expecting you to know about the architecture so you can build your solution with the help of proper inheritance and proper hierarchy and place it in the right place so that when you're developing something against particular dependencies, it will be movable to a target environment as you expect. And so these are just your basic product skills. Now, in terms of the developer skills, we're expecting you to have an understanding of what an SQL is. So we're not expecting you to be an expert in SQL, and in all fairness, you don't need to use much of SQL, and you're probably not going to if your solution is quite simple. So the SQL is not actually being used anywhere in Creatio if you follow just our entity framework, but nonetheless, it really helps you understand how the persistent data storage works if you have an understanding of SQL. Now, we're expecting you to know C# for backend development. Our backend is all programmed in C# and there is nothing else. So you're programming C# either against the .NET Framework 472 or you're programming against .NET Core, depending on the installation of your target environment. Now, we're not expecting you to be an expert in .NET Framework and .NET Core. However, the basic fundamentals between those both is kind of the same. So as long as you have a good solid understanding of how .NET or Framework or Core works, you should be okay. In terms of the front-end development, though, there's a lot of different libraries that you could bring into Creatio, and the ones that we use, again, we're expecting you to know. So, for example, our core front-end libraries, we're expecting you to have a little bit of a familiarity. You may not be an expert in those libraries, but we expect you to know a little bit about them. That is really going to help you out. And then, obviously, integrations and API. A lot of times what we see in real world is that people who are not familiar with the existing API functionalities, for example, things such as data service and OData, are starting to implement their own custom configuration services to achieve something that's already built into Creatio. So we're trying to prevent that. We're trying for people to encourage people to use built-in standard features rather than going and implementing yourself. Now, this solves a couple of problems. First, it makes it more reliable, obviously transferable, and it's easier to support in the future if such need ever occurs. So, what's your path? So let's take a look how you can become a certified Creatio developer. Let me see if I can get my next slide. Just one second. All right. Come on, slides. All right, something happened on the right-hand side, but nonetheless. Let's take a look at the learning path that you as an aspiring developer or an accomplished developer can take in order to become a certified developer. So the first thing is training. So if you want to acquire some skills that you think you're lacking before you get into a certification process, is to either follow an e-learning path or a guided learning path. Now, I've separated e-learning and guided learning, and then a third option is corporate learning, but corporate learning is really just like guided learning, but made for teams, just for your organization. So, for example, if you are in a group of people, and let's assume that we have a guided learning running in August or in September, or whatever the date is, and you will be one member in a group of people. Now, if you want that to be a little bit more private, then it becomes a corporate training, and it's usually recommended for a group of people. Let's say for an organization who wants to establish a knowledge base or who wants to train 5 or 6 people, and it makes more sense to have kind of one-on-one without anybody else present. So this is going to be a corporate training. Now, when you don't have such luxuries, then guided learning is your option. A guided learning is where it's the instructor-led. It's either myself or a colleague of mine who's going to be conducting this training. As part of this training, you will be shown how to do certain things and how to perform certain exercises and assign certain homework. Now, this is not required, obviously, for you to become a certified developer. However, we'll show you a couple of know-hows and tips and tricks on how to solve your problems a little bit easier. And if you want to do everything on your own, then there is an e-learning course for you. Now, an e-learning covers exactly the same features. It just you have to do it at your own pace, and you have to browse the internet, and you have to browse the Academy website to find the information that you're looking for. Now, let's quickly jump into the Academy website and take a look at where you can find all this information. So here I am under the Academy website, and I'm not even signed in here. And let's take a look at some of the options that we have available when we want to undertake some training. So I'm going to go into training section, top right corner, and in the training section, I'm going to choose what kind of training I want. So I can go with guided learning, e-learning courses, or corporate training. So far, so good. We know the differences. So I'm going to start off with my e-learning course. So let me find the course. And what we can see here is that there is quite a few options to choose from. There's a ton of learning courses that you can go for. But what I'm interested here is predominantly a different role. I'm not interested in the analyst. I'm not interested in the product expert. I'm interested in what's available for me as a developer. So for a developer, I have three main courses: no-code customization, BPM tools, and the actual development. Now, the actual development will cover things that you require to code. You write your code, JavaScript or C# code, whatever, and this is going to be covered here. Now, the BPM tools will cover programming with BPM tools. So it's kind of a common thing between the analyst and the developer. So if, for example, you want to create a process, or you want to create something that will be launched when the record is saved, so perhaps you can create it in code, or better if you create it with the help of business process, with the help of a signal when the record is modified or added. In order for you to learn how to do that, we expect you to take this BPM tools class. If you go inside the BPM tool class, all you have to do is just simply follow, click and roll, and follow the classes or follow the lectures that are prepared for you. The same thing goes for no-code customization. We'll teach you how to create your own sections and how to create details and how to take advantage of built-in tools. So these sections, no-code customization as well as the BPM tools, they're common, they're shared between the developer and the analyst. Once you actually follow these and you understand how the product works, then we kind of expect you to take this development Creatio platform. So let's see if we can enroll into this. I am expected to log in. Let me see if I can remember my username and password. Okay, great. So it looks like I logged in. And yes, you are required to have a username and password. So just go ahead and register in the Academy for a username and password. And once you do, you will be able to follow this class. So here, everything broken down into separate modules. So for example, module 1 will talk about Creatio architecture, and then development environment setup, and then many other modules that we required worthy of your time to prepare you for a proper developer. And once you follow all these lectures, and you can follow the lecture at your own pace. Obviously, there is no time limit or anything like that. So let's just take Creatio architecture and let's see what it's all about. So I'm just going to follow this course, and you'll see that there's going to be a bunch of videos. So there's going to be a 13-minute video. There's going to be an article, and towards the end, there's going to be a couple of test questions that will help you assess whether or not you understood this topic. Now, once you complete this topic, you'll see that it's not going to say that you watched it. So I must have watched it in the past, but you can always come back to it, and then you can rewatch if you need some help. Now, once you complete all these courses, and I apologize for that, once you complete all these courses, it's perhaps time for you to follow and try to prepare yourself for certification. Now, when you're ready and you feel that you acquired enough or sufficient amount of knowledge, then all you have to do is just simply click on certifications and tests. Certification test area is designed specifically for people who are aspiring to become certified. And certification comes in many shapes. You can either be a Creatio analyst certified, or you can be a Creatio developer or product expert. Creatio analyst is something that you will be tested on low-code tools predominantly, and you as a developer will be tested on low-code tools as well as the developer tools. So in all honesty, Creatio developer is a little bit more complex than perhaps Creatio analyst, but Creatio analyst will test low-code tools as well as a couple of other adjacent areas in more depth than perhaps the same topic is tested for the developer. So let's switch to Creatio Developer. And let's say that we want to take the exam. So all you have to do here is just simply click the button and say, I'd like to take the exam. Choose the product, Creatio Developer, and take the exam. Now, there are a couple of options for you here. You can either take a real certification exam on the right-hand side, or you can take a self-assessment test. If you take a self-assessment test, then obviously it's going to assess how you feel without sustaining the penalty if you fail. So a self-assessment test is something that is developed for you, and so you can know how well you know particular topic. So if I start it now, for example, I will be given a couple of options, and I can choose that I would like to be a Creatio developer, and I can choose a level of difficulty. So I'm going to go with basic, and I'm going to say I'd like to continue. It's going to start a test, and you can follow the instructions, and it will tell you how much you need to score, and it puts you in roughly the same environment as when you're sitting down for real certification. So we're going to start with the test. You will now be asked 25 questions that you're expected to provide the answer. I am not going to be answering it for real, but I'm just going to flip through a couple of answers. And let's say here's my answer, and here's my answer, and I'm not even reading at this point. Let's assume that we answer all the way to question or answer number 25. Answer number 25, we're going to set the final answer, and we're going to say finish. The system is going to say that I'd like to score you, and I'm going to say, okay, well, score me. And it's telling me that I've got 2%. So clearly I am not good enough to become a developer just yet. So I probably need to go back, and I probably need to verify or to understand why or where I did not score enough. So I'm going to have to go back and try this until I get sufficient grade. Once I get the sufficient mark, I can probably go back and I can start preparing myself, or I can start registering for a real test. So let me go back to the certification exam, and rather than taking the self-assessment test, what I would like to do is I'd like to take a real certification exam. Let's assume that I am ready now. Now, here what you're going to see is that you want to choose the type of a certification. So the first one is either analyst or Creatio Developer. So obviously we're interested in the developer, and you can even choose a couple of languages. So English is offered by the Creatio Academy staff, and Spanish is offered by some other certified company who just simply speaks Spanish. What we need to do now is choose a date for your certification. We don't do them every day. We do them once a week usually, but however, if the demand spikes, then we may open up additional dates. So if you're looking for a certification, just keep an eye on these dates. Let's say I would like to take a certification 24th of August. I do not recommend taking the certification unless you're absolutely certain in your own skill set that you will be able to complete the assignment in such a short period of time. So let's say that we want to take it on the 31st. Now we need to select the time slot, and everything is broken down into different times, and mind you that this is in UTC, so just be careful with the time you select. So let's assume UTC +1, and I'm going to say 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to continue, and I'm going to offer them my information, and here comes the payment part. Now, if you're an independent developer, then unfortunately you have to go through this screen, and the only way for you to go through the screen is to actually fill out your card number, and you will be charged for it. However, if you have, or if you work for a company who is a partner of Creatio, then you don't have to pay for it. It's probably governed by your partnership agreement, and so there are other ways of resolving this. Now you can say I have read, obviously, and you can say submit this form, confirm and pay. So I'm just going to say, oops, my company pays for me. Sorry, could not find the payment information, of course. My company pays for me. So what this means is that the charge is going to be attributed to the organization you work for, and obviously there has to be a match happening, and most of the time we can do it automatically, but if not, then there will be follow-up from the academy side just to make sure that we understand who you are, but usually we can match who you are to which organization you work for. So after you sign up for certification, you say register. What you can expect next is within a reasonable amount of time, and it can be anywhere between a minute or so all the way up to 1 day, depending on whether or not we can find a match and the manual intervention is required. You can expect an email from the academy with an attachment file in PDF format outlining everything you need to know about certification. At that point, you will be given an assignment to complete, and the assignment requires you to complete certain tasks on your local development environment. You are expected to have a local development environment when you're sitting down for certification. So the real certification consists of two parts. Part number one is the assignment, and part number two is sitting for this exam in a multiple choice fashion, just like I showed you not too long ago. When you're completing your assignment, you will be given 5 or 6 tasks depending on the level of difficulty you choose. So for example, most of the assignments will ask you to build a section or create a section of some sort, to create a detail and attach to that section. Make sure that you know how to use validation or perhaps async validation if that's what you need to do. It will ask you how to use system setting to read certain things. It will ask you to react to certain events. So you can either do it with the help of business process, or you can do it with the event listener of some sort. Whatever you choose to do, that's completely up to you. We do not give you opinionated answer. We're just telling you what we want you to achieve. So for example, when you add a record to a particular section, we expect some certain handler on the back end to kick in, do some work, and to inform the front end that something has happened in the back end. So you probably need to know something about WebSocket message or message channel utility in order for you to be able to solve this assignment. Now, if you get the assignment and you're completely lost, then perhaps you need to do some Googling and go on the online, or need to go on the Academy website to actually find how we solve these problems, or perhaps you can consult the community. However, we do not recommend asking the community for the specific question of your assignment. Our tech support is fully aware of all the questions, and we've seen some cases where people just simply took the questions of their assignments and then they came on the community website and they asked that question, and so the tech support is now trained not to answer those questions, because that's kind of unfair to everybody else who had to put some hard work into it. Once you complete your assignment, you will be sending us a package with the zip file that we will be able to validate locally, and at the time of your certification, you will be able to, you will have to walk us through. So your certification, let me switch to the next slide just to kind of keep it on the screen for us, but I'll talk about that slide in, just a minute. So at the time of your certification, you will have to walk us through your assignment. We will ask you questions. For example, one thing is going to be maybe about integrations and web services. And so if there was a question on the web service, we'll ask you, how do you get maybe certain element or certain property? For example, we can ask you, where are you getting user connection when you're implementing a custom configuration web service? And so that would be a question that you can expect on the certification. You're expected to demonstrate that you know how to execute certain web services, how to pass authentication, either with the help of cookies or help of identity service. Again, there is no requirement there, but it's up to you how you authenticate yourself. You're expected to show us how you've coded the front end and the back end. So you're expected to show us the knowledge of the system. So you can't really just take a completed solution and just without ever seeing it or actually developing it yourself, kind of walk us through, unless you like you have that skill. But normally, it becomes quite obvious within 2 or 3 minutes of the certification. Once you pass this technical assignment, so once you show us that you know how to do the actual work, the next part is going to be sitting in for your certification. So, or sitting in for the exam. We will generate you a one-time link, so you can't really take it beforehand. And when you're given this link, you will be given approximately 45 minutes. Normally, it's about 45 minutes to answer 25 questions, so it's more than enough time for you to answer all the questions there. And so you can go back and forth as many times as you want. You can go back and you can change your answer. You're not allowed to use any, obviously, help, or you can't have a list of all the answers on the monitor right next to you. We kind of have a little bit of a trust relationship here, so we trust that you're not going to do any of that stuff. However, if we do catch you, we will have to fail you. Once you pass the certification part, then you will be given a certificate. Now, a certificate is not a digital certificate, but it's a digitally generated form, obviously, with its number, and we will be storing it locally in our local production, I would call it production environment. And so when the next time, when the question comes from your organization or from you specifically, we know that you're a certified developer. So the level of expertise that you possess is a little bit different than someone who is not certified. And so the tech support will be answering questions that you ask, even though they are related to development, which is usually not covered if you're not certified. So that's essentially what we need to know about the certification. It's a fairly straightforward process. If you've been working with Creatio for quite some time, I don't think it's going to be very difficult for you to pass. And if you're doing certification for the second time, then we have an even a better, easier option, and that's recertification, in which case we don't expect you to perform the same assignment one more time. So you're just sitting down for the exam, and the questions, we're constantly updating the questions. So the pool of questions is growing, and we're just kind of expecting you to answer the questions, get your score, and be done with that. And some people passing their recertification exam within 10 to 15 minutes, and they're done for the year, and then a year later hopefully they come back and they do it again. So the certification is fairly straightforward process. Now, in terms of the time it takes, if you are not familiar with Creatio, I would say 3 to 6 weeks of constantly working with Creatio would probably be a good timeline. But that's considering that you're being honest with yourself, and if you're putting honest effort into learning how the front end and the back end works. If you have absolutely no knowledge, so if you come from, if you're a new employee and you hire in the organization, then you just need to become certified. So expect to spend 4 to 6, maybe 8 weeks before you can sit for certification. I wouldn't recommend doing it sooner. And so that's all there is to it. In terms of the help that you can get, the Academy is a fantastic place. All public and all official documentation is on the Academy. Academy has e-learning courses, as you saw. We also have the YouTube channel here where we publish some interesting gotchas or interesting information that you might find useful when you're preparing yourself for certification. So kind of stay up to date and follow us on YouTube. And that's all I wanted to basically mention here with the how to become a developer. Now, the other thing that I wanted to point out is on August 31st, we are hosting a hackathon. So here's a barcode, and I've had it on the screen for quite some time. So please do scan it with your mobile device and just follow the link, whatever shows up in the whatever shows up on your screen when you do so, and sign up for that event. It's going to be quite interesting. We will be showing how to build certain applications. We will be showing low-code components as well as code components. I don't really want to tell you what we're going to be showing right now. For that, you're going to have to come and join us. But please do. It's going to be interesting. It's not going to take too much time, maybe 2 hours. That we're expecting you to dedicate to this event. But if you do, you'll have a blast. So that's it for today, guys, and I'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.